Recognizes the gentleman from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I would yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Gosar.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.J. Res. 7, legislation I introduced requiring the Biden administration to finally end the outdated and abusive COVID national emergency declaration. Nearly 3 years have passed since President Trump rightfully declared a national emergency concerning the COVID pandemic. The factual basis for this declaration was apparent then. As time has progressed and as we've learned about this virus, we know that it is no longer a national emergency. Since President Trump's initial declaration, the House of Representatives has not once voted, let alone debated, whether to terminate this national emergency or keep it as required. Let me repeat that. Required under the National Emergencies Act. The National Emergencies Act requires Congress to review termination or continuation of a national emergency no later than 6 months after its implementation, and at least every 6 months thereafter. Yet former Speaker Pelosi repeatedly blocked my attempts to simple debate about the merits of extending or terminating the COVID national emergency declaration, despite the law requiring its review. That would make it almost 4 to 6 times we should have had this debate during that time. What type of representative body cannot even discuss a national emergency? Until now, the House of Representatives has failed to perform its most basic constitutional duty, checking the powers of the executive branch and the power of the purse. In contrast, companion legislation has twice passed the Senate, most recently with an overwhelming bipartisan support. Last September, Mr. Biden declared, "The pandemic is over. Cases are down. America is opened back up." This hardly sounds like a country under a national COVID emergency. Yet Joe Biden continued to extend the COVID national emergency simply to force Americans to live under extreme measures that deprive us of our freedoms. Just this week, Mr. Biden issued a statement of administrative policy opposing H.J. Res. 7, implying to veto the legislation. This action stands in stark contrast to the recent promises that Biden would end the COVID national emergency in May. Let's not forget that Mr. Biden once promised the American people there would be no federal COVID vaccine mandates. Yet, he soon lied and mandated COVID vaccines for millions of Americans. We simply cannot trust what Biden, if and when Biden will keep his word. The evidence is to the contrary. It is time to end this emergency declaration now. If passed through the House today, the National Emergencies Act requires the Senate to expeditiously vote on my resolution within 18 calendar days. I urge all my colleagues to support this legislation and send it to the Senate. Do your due diligence. Do what the law requires. I yield back.